All right, Jacob Hester, LSU great. I've gotten addicted to TikTok somehow, Hester. And I know I'm too old for it. I am too old for it. But I was on there the other day, and I get a lot of golf, a lot of food, and a lot of college football. That's the algorithm they serve me up.
Yeah.
And the game they served me up was that game that primetime game you guys played against Florida. And you score the game-winning touchdown at Tiger Stadium. And then you're laying on the field like you can't get up. And they cut away to the final play, which is like a batted down Hail Mary. What happened to you? I know you lived, thank God. But what happened to you with that play? Do you remember that play?
Oh, absolutely. I do. That was an electric environment in Death Valley. But it's third down and I score, but immediately I go to snap my chin strap. And at that point in the season, Tiger Stadium at the time, they had to put a lot of sand in the field to try to make it, last throughout the season. And I went to do my chin strap and it wouldn't go. And I immediately thought, I'm on the extra point team. Right. And so I don't want us to have to burn a timeout and we're trying to sub a guy in and out. And all of a sudden, we miss the extra point and who knows, Tebow's on the other sideline. And so it won't go. And I'm like, first initial thing, because Les Miles used to teach us this. I'm like, grab your knee, act like you're hurt. So I'm just sitting there, just, acting like I'm in pain, looking at the referee, like I need somebody to come out here. And it was really all because my chin strap would not buckle. And so I was trying to do my best acting on the field. It worked. We didn't have to use a timeout. Yep. The trainers came out. I kind of whispered it into Jack Marucci, the head trainer's ear. He, has a good laugh. And he's like, oh, you just wanted a curtain call. You just wanted to walk off with the trainer, have, the entire south portion of the stadium chant your name. I'm like, no. I was doing what the coach told me to do. And so, I was not hurt. It was just a bad acting job by me.
No, it baited me in. I thought, God, Hester, he gave his all for the Tigers.
A little Kellen Winslow. Carry me off.
Hester giving his all for the Tigers at Tiger Stadium.
Hester, I never thought we would live to see a day where Ole Miss, most people thought Ole Miss was going to have a better year than LSU. And LSU actually, it was a great game last year, track meet, but LSU actually host Ole Miss this year. And if I'm an LSU fan, I believe I've got a much better coach in Brian Kelly. I've got the brand. What is the expectation? Because it doesn't seem like the national perception is LSU should be in the college football playoff. But my perception is, I know you just lost the Heisman Trophy winner, but it's still year 3, and there's still a lot of talent. And if Ole Miss is supposed to be there, if I'm an LSU fan, I believe LSU should be in that 12-team playoff.
Yeah, when you talk to LSU fans, they're kind of in the same belief as, I think Ole Miss is going to be good, but you're LSU. Ole Miss should never come into your stadium and be a favorite. Like, you should always expect to win that game. Now, I'll say this. I'm a big believer in Ole Miss, and I was reluctant to give myself over to Ole Miss, but leading into media days and then after media days, I walked away highly impressed with Lane Kiffin and the 3 players that they brought to Dallas. But I think LSU is in a position where they should make a 12-team playoff. Like, that should absolutely be the expectation with this team. Now, are they going to finish in the top 4? I don't have them there. No, but I believe they will make a 12-team playoff, and that's kind of the bare minimum. We talked about it last time that I was on the show. Like, that is what LSU fans expect. That's what Brian Kelly expects. That's what everyone should expect from this team. And so there's games on the schedule that are going to be toss-ups. There's going to be 4 games on LSU's schedule that are going to decide if they make the playoff, and Ole Miss at home is going to be one of those. Now, I don't think it's the most important game. The most important game is the first game in Las Vegas against USC. You know why? Because LSU's lost 4 straight openers, and they have had to just scratch and claw and fight to get to 10 wins the last 2 seasons. Just imagine if they won one of the openers. And remember, 2 years ago, you get a couple of kicks blocked, you muff 2 punts, you tried to lose that game. In fact, you said, here, Florida State, please take this game. And they did. And then last year, it got away from you in the fourth quarter. But starting behind the 8 ball like that, playing in the SEC, you almost have to win all your non-conference games. And so that game is important. But for LSU, if they don't win the opener, then it's a completely different conversation about 12-team playoff.
Fun Sunday night. I'm interested, after talking to all the coaches and players out there, don't you feel that's where we are now, that I would go 10 deep this year? The fan base, the coaches, the players think they should be in the playoffs, and it's almost like the NCAA basketball tournament. Either we're in it or we're not in it. It's a successful season or not a successful season.
It's a great question. Like, how many true SEC fan bases believe that their team should be in the playoff every single year. And if we went back in the last 10 years, there wouldn't be a lot of teams that would make it every single year, like your Alabamas and your Georgias. But if you went back, I mean, there's a lot of times LSU wouldn't have made it. Now, LSU, the last, 25 years, they've got the second most national championships behind Alabama, but they would have made it about half the time. So it's not as easy as we're making it sound. It's still going to be difficult. Now,
of course, Brent Venables, Oklahoma would have made it every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they would have made it probably just a year ago. And so it's going to be a situation where there's going to be a lot of disappointed fan bases, like the Florida Gators. Like Florida right now is a program that still thinks they should make a 12-team playoff. And 3 of the 4 years under Dan Mullen, they would have made that 12-team playoff. They went to New Year's Six bowl games 3 years. And then now, even with Billy Napier barely making a bowl game 1 year, not making it the next, I bet that fan base still thinks that they should make a 12-team playoff more times than not. And so it's going to change the expectation. It's going to change kind of some head coaching futures if you don't make that 12-team playoff. And I would look at LSU. I would look at Auburn, certainly Georgia, Alabama. I would look at Texas. Like those 5 off the top of my head are going to think that they should make it every single year. And, a team like Auburn, I don't think they're close to that right now, but that doesn't change the fan base expectation.
Jacob Hester is with us at Jacob Hester 18 on Twitter. You're a college football great. You spilled it all the blood for LSU, so you've played the game. You talk about it now with T-Bob every morning, and then you do it again on Sirius XM. So you're a college football guy. As good as you were in the NFL, you're a college football guy. The Rose Bowl yesterday, reports are, has informed the college football playoff, we don't ever want to be part of the semifinals or finals. You just keep us a permanent quarterfinal. We want to keep our January 1 date. That's it. That's all we ever want is January 1. Never elevate us above that.
Yeah.
Do you care? Is that sad to you as a football fan? I mean, how do you feel about that?
Oh, man, it's a little bit of me. It's like, okay, well, I can appreciate this is what you've always been. And so many things in college athletics are changing, right? That I can appreciate you saying, no, we want to kind of do what we've always done. There is a portion of that I can appreciate, but also, man, there's so many people across this country that play college football that would absolutely love to play in that stadium. I mean, ESPN just did the top stadiums in college football. I believe the Rose Bowl came in at number 2, only behind Death Valley. So, I mean, it is a mecca of college football. I've seen a national championship in that venue. I've seen a soccer game in that venue. I've seen a concert. I've seen everything in the Rose Bowl. And every time you walk in there, you get the same feeling. And I wish that they would move off of that just a little bit, because I think a national championship game, just imagine a national championship game between 2 massive brands that never really play in that stadium, and it's in the Rose Bowl. I went to a Texas-Alabama national championship game there, and it's the most goosebumps I've ever gotten from a stadium where I wasn't like a player or wasn't involved, with a desire to who wins the game or not. It was incredible. I mean, 2 massive brands in the Rose Bowl. It is just the stadium that is unlike any other. So, for me, even last year, Alabama and Michigan, those 2 logos being in that stadium at the same time, it just felt right. It felt like the peak of college football. So I can appreciate them wanting to hold on to what they've always had. But come on, man, put some out there for the rest of us that want to see, Texas versus Ohio State in a Rose Bowl in a national championship game.
Which quarterback in this league are you the most excited about seeing? And if they play lights out, their team could be sneaky good and get into a college football playoff?
Oh, gosh, we've seen so much of him, but I think it's Jaxson Dart. I want to see him year number 3. He decided to come back, and all of his weapons decided to come back. So I want to see what level Jaxson Dart can get to, because I think when you start talking about the pecking order of quarterbacks, and we all just talked it in Dallas, it's like, okay, well, Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, and then you start to have the conversation of other quarterbacks. I'm like, hold up. Why are we putting Jaxson Dart underneath Quinn Ewers? Quinn's really good, but look at what Jaxson Dart did a year ago, and I think that's going to go up. Think about his weapons that he has. And one of them, Trey Harris was at media days. But think about the conversations we had about Juice Wells at South Carolina and who he was and who he was going to be. And he gets hurt, and so everybody kind of forgets about him. He might be the 4th receiving option in Oxford this year. That doesn't mean he's lost a step. That's just how good the weapons are for Jaxson Dart. I think he can play himself into the Heisman Trophy conversation. I think he can play himself into maybe an SEC championship game appearance. Like, that's the kind of expectation I have for Jaxson Dart this year. He's been good. I expect him to go to great this year, year number 3 with Lane Kiffin.
A bigger gap between talent of Oklahoma and Texas this year, or hours slept per night in Dallas, T-Bob and you? Which is the bigger gap?
Oh, man, I don't think Oklahoma and Texas are that far away. So I guess, T-Bob, gosh, he likes to say, if you want to hoot with the Owls, you got to soar with the Eagles in the morning. And so I think he gets that done at an elite level. So I don't know how much he actually slept. But the talent gap between Oklahoma and Texas is not that big.
Yeah.
Oklahoma won 10 games last year and beat Texas. I was at the game. I was on the goal line when Oklahoma scored. They went and took that game from Texas. Texas did not give that to them. And they, had a couple of games that you're like scratching your head. How did they lose? Now, Arizona, who I think is a really good team, Noah Fafita is one of the best quarterbacks nobody talks about, and they beat them in a bowl game. And it's like, oh, well, they're not any good. It's like, wait a minute. They won 10 games. They beat Texas. They return a lot of that team. Now, Dylan Gabriel's in Eugene and not Norman. That's a big deal. But Jackson Arnold's a 5-star guy, right? If we want to put him on the pedestal like we did, let's see what you've got. But it's not a huge gap. Oklahoma, their schedule is brutal. We talk about Florida's schedule all the time. We need to have the conversation about Oklahoma's schedule just like we have it with Florida. For their final 5 games, we're talking, Ole Miss, Missouri, Alabama, LSU. The college football playoff will be decided by Oklahoma. And maybe not even because they're in it, but because they play teams like the 4 I just listed that we think have a real opportunity in being in a college football playoff. The college football playoff is going to go through the Oklahoma Sooners. They also play Texas. They also play Tennessee. All of these teams that we put into a group of, we expect 2 of this group to make a playoff, right? If it's Georgia and Texas and we expect 4 teams to get in, well, that group's going to have 2 teams. Well, they got to go through Oklahoma, and Oklahoma's going to kind of decide who makes a 12-team playoff.
Go back to your NFL days. Hardest you've ever been hit. Who was it?
Oh, it's always look. The answer for this is always the same in college and the pro ranks. It was the same guy. It's always Patrick Willis. Patrick Willis was just like the best football player because he's smarter than you, he's faster than you, and he's stronger than you. That is such a bad trio for me as a fullback. And the best / worst part about the entire deal is he would put you into the dirt, and then he had this big smile on his face, and he'd help you up because he's the nicest human being that you've ever met. It makes it worse. Like, if there's like a Brandon Spikes guy who is like a habitual line crosser and would do things that like you don't want to even tell people about because they're that bad under a pile, it's like it makes it better. It's like, okay, well, he's just kind of a turd. It's fine. We'll move on. It's going to, make me maybe even play harder the next play. Patrick Willis, I don't know if he knew he was better than you. Probably did, because he's better than everybody. And he always had a club. He always had a club like on his hand. He had always broken his hand or something. And like it was a weapon that he had. And man, he was so good. I played against some of the best. I played against Zach Thomas and Urlacher and Ray Lewis. I played against all those guys. They were great. None of them came close, in my opinion, my experience, to Patrick Willis.
Okay, so something you said a moment ago, as a lover of SEC football, you were at the Red River last year. We've talked about wanting to go. I mean, does it live up to the hype? Is it?
Oh, it's incredible.
Okay.
It is incredible. Just everything about that experience. The fact that it's at the Cotton Bowl and not Jerry's World, right? It still has that old school college football venue. You remember moments watching Roy Williams for Oklahoma jump over the guy trying to block him and him sacking the quarterback, and just, all the moments in that series history. And then also, like, there's this gigantic fair going on at the same time. Half the people at the fair have no idea that there's a marquee college football game going on, like literally in the middle of this fair. It's not like anything I've ever really been to before. I love the way that they split the crowd, right? It's a little bit different than they do it in Jacksonville. And so you have one side that has just full hate. And if you're in that side of it and you're trying to get things done, it's going to be a long day for you. It is incredible. It was my first experience last year. We did shows for SiriusXM leading into the game, and I've been to some great venues, some great rivalry games, but that one, it's got a unique nature to it because of where it's played, how they set up the crowd, and just some good old-fashioned hate as well.
All right, he is Jacob Hester at Jacob Hester 18 on Twitter, SiriusXM, off the bench with E&T Bob every morning down there in Louisiana as well. You can watch it on YouTube. Thank you very much, Hester. Great talking with you as always.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Y'all enjoy the rest of your day.